Okay, scream for me, Honda. And we never tire of that. And welcome back everyone to the first ride of the year. Now, I know for a lot of you it's the middle of March, and the first ride of the year was probably some weeks ago. But for me, I've just been back in the country for about 4 days. And that's because I've spent the first couple of months over in India. Now, if any of you watched my previous video, you know that I left work to be able to do this, because basically it's my life and not work's, and I want to do what I want to do and not what they want to do. But a couple of guys have asked questions on the forums about, you know, how was it, where have you been? I thought I'd give you a little rundown on that. It's not exactly motorcycle based, but as we're all talking about enjoying life, and motorcycle is a big part of that, then I guess there's a tenuous link into what I like to do, be that on the bike or off the bike. And there's a very thin afterthought. India happens to be full of Royal Enfields, which if you ever get a chance to ride on one, I don't know, it's like riding a tea trolley with 500 cc's. It's got all the weight of a tea trolley and about the same power as well, but I digress. India, yeah, what a fabulous country that is. And I've been back there maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 times since 2009. That's the first year I went. And I did all my travelling, and I went to north and south and east and west, and I found my favourite place, and that's the place I go back to time and again. And it'll be no surprise to a lot of people that this place is Goa. Now, Goa back in the 90s was trance city, which isn't my thing at all. But you know, lots happened in the last 20, 25, nearly 30 years, and there's enough coast in Goa to pick your favourite place, whether you want to party like a loon or just go shanty for as long as you like, and that's pretty much what I did. So I managed to get out there at the start of January, and actually came back at the very beginning of March, and I spent 8 very agreeable weeks out there. I go to the same place every year, which is down in southern Goa. I'm not going to tell you what that place is, because for now it's out of the Lonely Planet and the Likewise guides, and I quite like the idea of that. But if you're living on there, it's Benolim, which is between Varka and Kolva, for those who have any geography of the area. But it doesn't really matter, because it's all 30 kilometres of the same coastline, and every 3 or 4 kilometres you've got another beach. And I go to the same one every time, basically because it's got everything I want. For a start, it's got great food. Now, this is an important one, because the typical stereotype that goes with India is the whole Delhi belly thing. Delhi belly does exist if you want to go looking for it, but it doesn't really exist in any of the touristy areas, because naturally, if a restaurant gets a reputation for giving shit food, not many people are going to go back there. And thankfully, the restaurant I go to has got a fabulous reputation for food, which may be the reason why I go there after all. That and their mojitos. So yeah, I go to this bar. It's called People Bar. It's run by a very nice couple who are of Indian and Belgian ancestry, and it's very much a family affair. Not only a family affair as far as running the bar is concerned, but a family affair as far as the community is concerned. It's no coincidence that 95% of the people who come back to that bar will come back year after year after year. Now, this isn't unusual. A lot of places down there have got their favourites, and everybody will tend to go back to the same places. But it does mean that you are immediately welcome. As a solo traveller, which I was for an awful long time, the idea of going back to a community where people are familiar and friendly and they know your face is so much better than sitting in the corner of a strange restaurant in a strange place, cupping your bottle of beer, trying to make eye contact. So yeah, I've been going back to the same place since 2009 now, and it's got the lot. It's got great food, it's got great drinks, it's got great staff, it's got a great community about it, it's got the only decent volleyball court on the whole beach, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. And it's also where I learned to do poi. Poi, for those of you who don't know, is where you get those maniacs who swing fire around. Hello, is that one of our vans? That's Pete. Hello, Pete. So that's my old work vans. Basically back there for 8 weeks. Well, what do you do for 8 weeks while you're out there? Well, it's between 30 and 33 degrees pretty much every day, and I never saw a cloud for the first 3 weeks. So, you know, forgive me if I sound blasé when I say I just sat on the beach all day, but basically I sat on the beach all day. But the important thing is that sitting on a beach in Goa is a damn sight better than sitting in a flat on your own. In Cumbria, and that's another reason why we do it, or rather I do it, there's no we. It's because frankly January and February is miserable in the UK, let's face it. It's dark by 4:30, it's cold, it's wet, it's windy, it's snowy, it's foggy, it's misty, it's rainy, it's all of those things, and Goa's none of those things. And that for me is enough incentive to save up the necessary coin and go out there for, well, as long as I can. But yet some people who go out there only for a fortnight, I kind of pity them, because it's a long way out there. It's 25 hours by flight with the necessary changeovers. And once you arrive, you've got a couple of days of maybe jet lag, and then you've got 10 days until you start leaving to go back home again. And I'd be counting those days, every one of those 10, if that was all I had. So yeah, I'll try and go for as long as possible. 5 or 6 weeks is the norm. This time I stayed for 8 because, being no job, there was nothing to rush back for. And when I did finally decide to return to the country, it wasn't over then, because I picked up a cheap flight from EasyJet for 40 quid to fly return to Toulouse, where I've got a friend of mine down in the south of France, and so I did that for another 4 or 5 days, and that nicely eased myself back into European way of life. And then, like I say, got back into Cumbria maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and here we are at the start of spring. And this is another important point, because, you know, much like the 2-week holiday, which you don't want, it's nice to have, but you don't want to spend 2 weeks. You don't want to come back to the country when you're still missing the holiday destination, because when you come back, all you're going to do is say, oh, I wish I was still out there. No, I want to come back to the country when I'm starting to miss my country, and second week of March seems ideal for that. You know, it's the days are getting longer, the nights are getting longer. Clocks go forward in a couple of weeks' time. You know, there's a lot to look forward to. If I came back at the beginning of February, so I don't really want to come back at the beginning of February, because it's still dark and misty and rainy and wet and cold and all the rest of that. So yeah, came back at the right time. Now, for those of you who think it's going to cost the absolute earth to stay in Goa, it doesn't, not at all. Admittedly, I could fly somewhere a lot nearer, you know, maybe only 2 or 3 hours away, but that's likely to be in Europe, and the average cost of living in Europe, even if I do it on the cheap with hostels and drinks and food, even on the cheap, I'm not going to get a lot of change out of 50 or 60 euros a day. Actually, that's too cheap. No, more like 70 or 80. And the thing about Goa is, I will comfortably live out there for £12 a day. Now, £12 a day, let's break that down. That's basically a £5 for my guest house, and that's a very regular room with fan and ensuite. There's nothing particularly luxurious about it, but then again, I never went to Goa to stay in a guest house, so all I really want to do is sleep and clean there. And then food, what's a regular meal? Let's call it 300 rupees on the beach. 300 rupees at today's conversion is about £4, and it's a decent meal as well. You know, it's going to fill you up. It's a proper job. And then breakfast is about half that, because let's face it, it's only going to be eggs on toast and some masala chai. And if you really fancy, you can have a couple of saucy drinks in the evening. A bottle of beer out there is 60 pence. I'll say that again, 60 pence for a bottle of beer. Hello, Paul. There we go, pay attention. Now, I don't drink beer as a rule. I've got a sweet tooth, so I drink mojitos, and mojitos come in at a colossal £2.50 each. I don't know where I'll find the money, but that's it. Let's call it 15 quid a day. 15 quid a day, and I was out there for 55 days, so who wants to do the maths on this? 400 quid? 400 quid for 8 weeks? Doesn't sound so bad, does it? Flights, probably that again, 400, 430, depending on who you fly with, where you fly to, how many stops. Because I stay for over 4 weeks, I've got to get a 6-month visa. That's another 120 quid, including the special delivery postage. And then maybe another 50 or 60 quid for travel insurance. And then that's me done. All done for about 1,500 quid for 8 weeks. I know people who go out there for 5 or 6 months, and they'll rent or let their place for 5 or 6 months, and will come back having made money. You know, that's nuts. Half a year in India, coming back, and it hasn't cost you anything. You know, that's yeah, that takes some doing, but people do it. Absolutely. So here we are then, second week of March, and we're back into good old Northern England. And even that's got a question mark over it. I've mentioned it a couple of times before in previous vlogs, and I had another good look at Toulouse and the south of France when I was visiting my friend, and who knows, this may not be my final resting place after all. When I first came here, I thought I could walk these fells for the rest of my days, but there's better out there, and there are alternatives. Brexit throws a bit of a spanner in the works. Pound versus euro, that's another one. Learning the language and getting a job, that can never be underestimated. But you know, if you can make it work, then make it work. There's no point staying in a place doing the same thing expecting a different result, because that's not going to happen either. And if I do move out to the south of France and open up a guest house or motorcycle tours or hostel, I'll let you all know. For the time being, I'm going to enjoy spring and summer here. So take care everybody, and I'll speak to you all soon.